Good morning. My name is Reverend Kylie Renner, and on behalf of the entire One Spiritual Center community, I want to welcome you here today. Thank you for bringing your love and your light into this space, this beautiful, beautiful Albuquerque morning. So I first want to say thank you for all of the prayers this week. I could certainly feel them as if you were here last week or listening online, you know that I had skin cancer surgery on my face on Monday, and all went well. A few more stitches than expected, and I have some soft tissue swelling, so I am not tired. I slept 11 hours last night. It's just my eye is puffy because of surgery, so thanks for the prayers, and I get my stitches out tomorrow, so I would be happy about that. Yay! So I have some sad news for those of you who may not have already heard, but we lost our beloved Arlen Asher this weekend. So all of us are in the feelings around all of that. If you had the pleasure of hearing him play with this band over the years, it was certainly something to behold. Just the way he could make, as we called it, the whole pawn shop sound so good. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he was able to bring some magic. And so you may have just heard his beautiful music, but then you might not have known what a humble and generous and kind man he also was. And so I have tears this morning just because of how supportive he was of this community. And I have to tell you, every time I tried to hand him a check, he handed it back. He said, "No, I believe in what you're doing, Kylie. Keep doing it." And so we're going to miss him. And this morning we're blessing him on his journey. And we picked songs that were songs that he always wanted to play for us. Because he always wanted to play apparently the same 5 songs, and Sid had to be like, "Well, last time you were here, you played those 5 songs, so maybe we should do something different." So we're gonna play Arlen's 5 songs today, and John is also gonna feature a meditation he wrote that Arlen played in for a few years with us, because it was always a gift to have him add his special touch to whatever we were bringing. So we're blessing Arlen on his journey this morning. And I just, some people just touch your life in ways that are bigger than others. And so I just feel honored to have gotten to know him a little bit over the last few years. So blessings to Arlen today. And we're just going to start by some prayer. So if you're comfortable, just breathing into this beautiful morning with me. As we take this opportunity to be present to what it feels like to be here today. Feeling the coolness in the air. As it becomes so clear that the seasons are changing. And we just breathe into a bigger space. As we open to whatever it is that needs our clear reflection and our sacred witness today. And so I just know that Spirit is present here, opening in us to whatever it is that we need to give and receive. I recognize that it is no accident that we find ourselves together here this morning. And so whatever it is that needs to arise for our remembering of a bigger story and a bigger idea, I just recognize happens with a grace and a love that moves through all of us as we lift each other up. And so I just know that love is present here. It is moving through this day. And I let go into it. And I let it be. And so it is.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed day and a dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of Sometimes I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
To prepare for our meditation this morning, I chose a poem that was originally written in German, and I realized that the translation that I have here in my notes is not as good as this translation on my phone, so I'm going to go with this one, hence the oddness of this. It is a poem called Autumn. The leaves are falling, falling as if far up, as if orchards were dying high in space. Each leaf falls as if it were motioning no. And tonight, the heavy earth is falling away from all other stars in the loneliness. We are falling. This hand here is falling, and look at this other one. It's in them all. And yet, there is someone whose hands, infinitely calm, are holding up all of this falling. And so here we are in the midst of all of this falling, recognizing these hands that are holding it all up. And we just allow that sense to take us where it takes us today for our meditation. Thank you so very much. I've been attempting to be a student of the times we're living in because it feels so much like if we don't use this time and all of the things that are coming up as an opportunity to learn and to grow, then we've missed something. Because I don't believe that things happen on accident, and I believe that we are being asked to look really deeply at some of the things that are happening around us and in us and get really clear about our relationship to all of that. And so I've been trying to be a student of this, and honestly, I'm tired of hearing myself talk about it, but honestly, I don't know what else to do. Because if we're not being real about what's going on, then I think we're also going to some sort of strange spiritual bypassing place that doesn't tap into the fact that we're being asked to look really deeply and closely with open hearts and tender hearts, and to really get clear about how we're participating in all of this. But one of the things I've been realizing is that one of the ways in which I tend to want to go through the world is to try and stay in the middle of things, like to find that middle place that I'll talk about a little bit later, but a lot of philosophies talk about it, and it's talked about as the middle way, like to find that space in between all of these extremes. But we are living in extreme times. There is absolutely no denying that we have been bouncing around from extremes, right? Like that every time we listen to the news, there's some extra extreme thing that feels like it's happening. And I honestly just had a kind of extreme week with everything that was going on in my life on top of all of it. And so I'm sitting here going, all right, so there must be something to learn from these extremes. Because I tend to want to avoid those extremes because somehow they don't make sense. You know, they require more energy. There's a way in which living on those extremes is kind of like a full-time job, right? Like if you want to live in that realm, you have to be paying really close attention. And so there's this really great Rumi poem that I think of often when I start to get close to extremes. And he says really succinctly something important, I think. He says, sit, be still, and listen, because you're drunk and we're on the edge of the roof. And for me, this is a reminder, like that when we're on the edge of things, we have to sit and be quiet and really listen. We have to pay attention in a different way, because when we're on the edges of things, we're really starting to understand the medium in which we're operating. So there's this great David Foster Wallace piece that he gave as a commencement address many years ago. And in it, he talks about the fact that we're these fish, not realizing that we're surrounded by water. We don't realize that we're operating in this medium, and we don't really understand it until we get to the edges of things. And so one of the things that happens when we get to the edges of things, we start to understand how this thing we're doing, how life really operates. And we find when we find our relationship to it in those extreme places. And so I've been having a lot of conversations with myself about really not understanding some of the choices and some of the things that are happening. Like on some visceral level, like I cannot imagine a world in which I would make the choice, knowing I was COVID positive, to be around other people, knowing that I could at any point cause harm to anyone else, and that it would be on me. And my brain, it just can't understand it, right? My brain goes, I could not live with myself. And so here I am sitting in that extreme going, wow, there's something for me to understand here. There's something for me to understand about some sort of bigger picture. And so I've been sitting with that because there's this tendency for me to want to make it make sense. And honestly, I don't think I can. And so here's this space inside of me where I have to go to the edge of that extreme and be willing to have that conversation that says that I don't need to make this make sense for it to exist. And that truly it makes me understand the medium in which I'm operating better. So Buckminster Fuller says that we shouldn't oppose forces, we need to use them. And so somehow in the examining of these extremes, we start to realize that we're here to use these forces, that this medium in which we're operating in has a lot of power. And that we have bypassed that power often because we haven't been willing to go to the extremes of things and start to use those forces, use the forces of love and peace and wisdom, and use those in a way that is big enough. So last week I talked about the fact that it takes a lot more energy to oppose bullshit than it does to create the bullshit in the first place. And I think that one of the things about these extremes is the realization that the power of the love that we can bring is so much bigger than the kind of other extremes that we've been experiencing. And that we have the power to really move that if we're willing to pay close enough attention. And so what's so interesting about what happens when we start to pay attention is that we start to realize that we need to catch up to ourselves, to our own transformation, and to really start to be aware of this medium in which we're operating in, this force field of all kinds of energies coming at us in all kinds of directions. And to give ourselves credit for the fact that we have somehow figured out how to navigate this in some way in which our heads haven't exploded. I mean, I felt like a little bit like my head might explode a few times in the last few weeks especially, but really that we've figured out some way of still cultivating a sense of presence and the capacity to listen and be aware, even with all of this going on, is some sort of miracle. And we have to be willing to realize that we can be able to experience these extremes while still recognizing a fundamental wholeness. And that's what I keep having to get back to, right? That in the midst of all of these extremes, what is pointing out to me is a bigger God. The fact that we can go in these directions that far means that God is big enough and even bigger than that. And so I keep going to this place inside that says I can experience these extremes and it can point me to a wholeness that is bigger than any of that, any direction in one direction. And that I can allow for this to cultivate a bigger sense of what we're really here to do and what we're capable of from the perspective of this wholeness. So as I been navigating these extremes and the wisdom of the Tao and the middle way, and this sense in which we are asked to bring our presence. We recognize that the extremes are ultimately not healthy to participate in. You know, because it's great that you eat. Sometimes it's not great that you eat all of the time, right? Or, you know, you want the pendulum, you know, that swings that we exist in. It's like you want to be warm, but you don't want to be so warm that you're burned, right? Like, so you can't, these extremes require a sense of being willing to hold a bigger space of wholeness. And we have to be able to cultivate a presence that is able to do that. And so this is the wisdom school that I feel like I'm in right now, which is the willingness inside of myself to experience these extremes while still holding a bigger vision, while still knowing that there's something bigger going on. So not shutting myself down to it, because honestly, that is one of the most frustrating things over the years that I've heard spiritual people say over and over again, which is like, I just turn it off. I haven't listened to the news in 20 years. I don't want to know what's going on because it pulls me off of my center. And honestly, it's frustrating to me because there's a real deep sense in which we become so spiritual, we become no earthly good, right? And we can do that. But so this sense in which we're able to open-heartedly and sometimes painfully and whatever it is that comes up, to actually experience these extremes while still cultivating a sense of wholeness that is bigger than those extremes. And in fact, being drawn into a wholeness that is bigger because of the extremes is this practice that requires a lot of vigilance. Because instead of getting drawn in and starting to think that whatever the extreme is of the moment is the only thing that is existing, there is this sense in which I need to be willing to create a love that is bigger than that inside of me. And I need to be willing to be that place where we realize that everything is intertwined, and that there is a wholeness that exists that is asking for us to participate in it in this manner in which we allow ourselves to move from a deeper place. And so when I was starting to think about how exhausting it was to kind of feel like I'm being pulled to these extremes and being pulled there without me wanting to, like, I don't know if you're like me, but you're thinking like, I couldn't even make this up, right? Like if I was writing the story of 2020, like, I don't think I could have. A lot of these plot lines are not something, if someone told me, oh, that's going to happen, I would say, no, I don't think so. That's even too much for science fiction. There's no way, right? So there's this sense in which getting pulled into that sense of incredulousness. I'm going to go with that one because I can say that one right now. But getting pulled into that, instead of realizing that okay, so this is, which must mean that the whole is bigger than what I realized, that our capacity to love is bigger than what I realized, that there is something bigger operating, like that is a much more powerful place. And that from there I can start to see the bigger picture unfolding and spirit moving and recognize its presence in everyone I encounter. And then all of a sudden I have the capacity to really start to shift and move things in my life. And it doesn't help to just feel like I'm getting exhausted by getting pulled from here to there by the news cycle. Like that's really, while I need to be aware and I need to bring my heart to it, what I really need to be bringing is this bigger place inside of me that's already there. And that's what's great about all of us who've been practicing for so long together, is that we've already cultivated that space. sometimes we forget it's there because we got drawn in, and that's perfectly natural. But what's great about having already cultivated this space is that we know that it's there. We've honed into that, but we're being asked to do it in a deeper way. And so I recognize that there's something to learn from these extremes, that there's something to learn about what we're doing together and what is possible, and that we have this power to realize that there's a wholeness that is big enough to contain it all. So I always loved, I had a teacher many, many years ago that told me that I needed to stop telling God how big my problems were and start to tell my problems how big my God was. And I think that sense in which we shift and we recognize that there's actually a bigger vision here, like that we need to be bringing, that is that when we shift from just doing this whole life thing the way we've been doing it in the past, to really actually participating in a way that allows us to be changed, and therefore let us then change it. And so I've been thinking about this this kind of mystery school we're in, and all of the things that we've been asked to pay attention to, and seeing it as actually some sort of way in which we are participating and finding a middle way. So Anthony DeMello, who I am fond of and who I shared a piece with you a few weeks ago, writes about the Tao. And what he says is that if you choose to center and not participate in this extremes, you will come to know the Tao. You don't grab it. You don't even touch it. It's just what the energy does when it's not being used to swing toward the extremes. It finds its own way to center at the center of each event, and takes place in life and remains quietly in the middle. The Tao is hollow. It is empty, like the eye of a hurricane. It's the power, and its power is in its emptiness. All things swirl around it, but it is unmoved. The swirl of life draws its energy from the center, and the center draws its energy from the swirl of life. All these laws are the same, whether in weather or in nature, in fact, in every aspect of your life. And so when I started to hear that language around the Tao, it started to feel more like, instead of this idea that I'm avoiding the extremes, instead I'm allowing the extremes to exist in this space, and I am using them. And I am using them to go deeper into my practice. I'm using them to go deeper into understanding the force and the power that we're participating in. And I'm using them to then be able to instead oppose things, to instead use that power that's behind them into creating something new. And so I've been in this practice this week, just trying to make sure that every time I start to feel overwhelmed by that which is, that I make sure that I am expanding my idea of whatever you want to call it, the one God, the vision, the story, the idea, that I'm just keeping on making sure I'm including it in the wholeness, because in doing so and not opposing it and not putting it outside of that, I am then able to transform it and then be able to stand from this perspective that recognizes that the extremes have something to teach us about that which we're participating in, and that we have the capacity to do this powerful practice together. So, as much as I think all of us want to be able to tell a different story about what's going on right now, we find ourselves in the middle of it. And in order to be able to write a new story or to create a new future, we have to be willing to be where we are. And Robert Frost said it that I have it in my head, and then it left. paraphrasing Robert Frost, that things stand around the circle and suppose, and the truth sits in the middle and knows. And so we can, dance around the edges and suppose, or we can tap into something inside of us that is bigger, that's asking for us to remember it, and we can use that power instead of the power that becomes dissipated when we forget that there's something bigger going on. And I'm going to talk about this until I remember it. So yes, I'm practicing this with all of us, but what I do know is that there's always a bigger God. No matter what the problem, there is always a bigger God, and that we have the power to use that force to create from. And so we're being asked to pay attention and to cultivate a closer walk with that one inside of us, so that we may more powerfully be agents of change. And I'm going to ask the band to come up, because we're going to anchor in prayer. And as we prepare the way for that, just inviting us all to hold Arlen in our vision today as we bless him on his journey. And to think maybe about some area in our life where either we've been avoiding the extremes and therefore have missed the lesson, or where we've been letting the extremes overwhelm us and haven't used them to point to a bigger wholeness. And I'm just going to invite you to join me as we sing into our prayers. We hand this over to that bigger one and allow it to move.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free.
So our prayer of love today is a prayer in which we open to this bigger vision that is calling us, this bigger idea, as we allow ourselves to recognize that in all of the extremes there is a wholeness that encompasses it all, that is bigger and more creative and more powerful than we could ever imagine. And we allow this experience that we are having collectively to draw us into this bigger wholeness, to draw us into a bigger vision and a bigger awareness of what is possible through the power of love and peace and wisdom. And I just recognize that there is this call in each and every one of us to find a place inside in which we are able to stand in the truth of who and what we are, and to use the forces around us and through us for a greater good, not only for ourselves, but for this entire thing called life. And so instead of opposing, we allow ourselves to use and to create, the power of love to transform everything that it touches. I just call forward a deeper love, a bigger one. And I just know that it knows what it is doing. And so through each and every one of us, I know that this love unfolding allows us to welcome in everything that we have learned and are learning so that we may more powerfully transform, so that we may more powerfully create together what we know is possible. And so I just know that right where we are is the power and the presence of the One. And there is always more. And so I welcome that more. I learn from it. I grow from it. I let it move me. And I let it be. And so it is.
A prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. A prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. A prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us. Here's a tune by Dave Brubeck.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Arlen, as well. I could imagine him smiling, playing along. So thank you for that. Want to thank everyone for your continued love and support of this community, and as everything changes again. So as you can tell, this is the time of year where we're going to start to have to wear layers. So please do whatever you need to do to make yourself comfortable, and we're going to figure out how to do this changing season thing together out here outdoors, and hopefully the weather stays perfect like this for as long as possible. But we've got some interesting ideas coming, including the fact that we might all end up leaving here on Sunday morning smelling like campfires, because we have this most amazing fire pit right here, and it could keep us cozy even on some of the coldest days. So thank you for your love and support. If you are called to make a contribution here in person, there are baskets hanging in the trees. We also have placed on our website to make a donation there if that is calling to you. We really appreciate it. If you're touched by what we're doing, we appreciate you helping keep it going. Also want to let you know that on the 4th Saturday of October, we will be at Roadrunner Food Bank, as we are every month. And we will be doing whatever they want us to be doing. But recently that has been making emergency food boxes that get distributed. And so we will be there on the 4th Saturday of the month together. And if you're wanting to join us, please just let me know so I can add you to our list. And we do that from 11 to usually, because they close and they want to be out of there, we're usually done by about 1:30. So thank you for that. Once again, thank you for all the prayers for me, and I really appreciate that. And we're lifting some people up this week for surgeries that are happening. So please join me in just knowing perfect healing. We got you, and we're supporting and loving you in that. And I know Spirit knows what it's doing. So thank you for being here today. And we're going to sing. So Dottie wants you to stand up. So if you're comfortable standing, we're going to sing.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's ticket, you just thank the Lord. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart, let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People get ready, there's the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, but the doors and borders, there's room for all that love. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart, let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright.
And we have one last blessing to sing to one another.
Go forth and walk in beauty and know that we are one. Thank you, Carrie. 1, 2.